Imagine owning millions of dollars in assets, but choosing to borrow money instead of selling them. Why? The answer reveals one of the most interesting secrets about how wealth actually works. It isn't just about having money. It's about owning things that are worth money. Our businessman looks extremely wealthy. But notice something important. Most of his wealth isn't sitting in his wallet. It's tied up in buildings, businesses, investments, and other assets. And that's where many people misunderstand wealth. Cash is money you can spend immediately. An asset is something valuable that you own. A company, a building to stock, land, or an entire business. Imagine our businessman owns a company worth $1 billion. That doesn't mean he has $1 billion sitting in his bank account. It means his ownership stake is estimated to be worth that much. Now imagine he owns a valuable building. He could sell it and receive a huge amount of cash. But the moment he sells it, he gives up ownership. And if that building becomes even more valuable later, someone else gets that future gain. That's why wealthy people care so much about ownership. Think of this golden key as the ownership of an asset. As long as he keeps the key, he keeps the asset. And that asset may continue generating income or increasing in value. The same thing can happen with a business. If the business grows, its value can grow too. So our businessman may become wealthier without receiving all that wealth as cash. And here's something even more interesting. He can go to sleep while his businesses and investments continue operating. That's the basic idea behind asset-based wealth. Instead of only trading his time for money, he owns things that can potentially create value. Now imagine his investment starts small, like a seed over time. That seed grows into a tree. Then the tree produces more growth. That's the basic idea behind compounding. Small gains can become much larger when they have enough time. But now our businessman needs a large amount of cash. Maybe he sees a new business opportunity. Maybe he wants to buy another asset, or maybe he simply needs liquidity. He has plenty of wealth, but much of it is tied up in assets, so he has two obvious choices. First, sell the building. He gets cash immediately, but the building is gone. Second, borrow against the building. And this is where things get interesting. He walks into a bank with proof that he owns something valuable. The bank evaluates the asset and the loan. If the terms are acceptable, the asset may serve as collateral. The bank provides cash, while our businessman keeps ownership of the building. That's the basic idea. He hasn't created free money. He simply accessed cash without immediately selling the asset. So compare the two choices. Sell the asset, cash comes in. Ownership goes out. Borrow against it, cash comes in, but ownership remains. Sounds brilliant, right? But there's a catch. Debt has a price. The businessman must repay the loan, usually with interest, according to its terms. So he leaves the bank with cash, but the building is still standing behind him. Now time passes. If the building increases in value or continues producing income, he may continue benefiting from owning it, but the debt is still there. That's why this strategy requires careful management. Think about what the bank is doing. It isn't giving him money just because he's rich. It's looking at the asset. It's looking at the borrower's financial position. And it's looking at the risk. The asset provides security for the loan. So our businessman now holds two things: cash from the loan and ownership of the original asset. But here's the important comparison. If he had sold the building, he would have cash, but no building. By borrowing, he keeps the building, but takes on debt. Neither option is automatically better. It depends on the numbers, the loan terms, and the risk. Now imagine the building becomes more valuable over the next several years. Our businessman still owns it. That's why wealthy investors often think beyond today's income. They're asking, what can I own today that could become more valuable tomorrow? And time can be powerful. An asset held for 5, 10, or 20 years can become dramatically different in value. But remember our investment tree. It didn't become enormous overnight. It grew gradually. That's the power of long-term compounding. And if an asset both increases in value and produces income, the owner may benefit from both. Now our businessman has another idea. He could use financing to expand his business or acquire another productive asset. If that new business succeeds, his wealth-producing assets may grow. But here's the part people often forget. Debt can magnify losses too. If the business fails, the loan doesn't disappear. And now we reach the biggest warning. Interest. Every loan has a cost. The longer debt remains outstanding, the more important those costs. Imagine the asset suddenly loses value. The building that was once worth millions is now worth much less, but the debt may still remain. That's dangerous. If the borrower can't meet the loan terms, the lender may have rights involving the collateral. So this isn't some magical billionaire cheat code. It's a financial tool. And like every tool, it can be used well or badly now. Look at the three characters. An employee has income. A small business owner has a business. An investor has assets. Different people start at different levels, but the basic financial journey can still be understood. Earn, test, find, invest, build assets, and learn how money works. Because wealth usually isn't created overnight. It's often built through years of decisions. One investment, one business, one asset, one skill. Smart decision at a time. And eventually, those small decisions can create something much bigger. That's what the golden key represents, ownership. Because when you own productive assets, you're not simply holding money. You're holding something that may have the ability to create more value. And that's the real reason billionaires may borrow instead of selling. They aren't necessarily trying to avoid spending their money. They're trying to avoid giving up ownership of valuable assets when financing can provide another option. But never forget the final lesson: debt is a tool, not magic. Used carefully, it can provide liquidity while preserving ownership. Used recklessly, it can destroy wealth. So don't ask, how can I borrow money like a billionaire? Ask something much more powerful. How can I build valuable assets that give me more financial options? Because cash can be spent, but ownership can keep working, and sometimes that's where real wealth begins.